This is the first of 3 lessons on CSS. CSS allows us to quickly make changes to the way our websites look without having to go through and change a lot of code. Typically it's in one location, which I'll show you later on, where you make one change and it's throughout your website, making life really easy. Like I said, the first one we're going to do is Inline Css. Just want to once again show you guys that the W3 Schools is a great place to go to get all this code information if you want to dig into it a little deeper, since I'm just brushing over it really lightly. And you'll see here on the CSS tutorial there's a ton of things you can change: background, borders, text, position, all that stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you using my website really quick that I've made. Hopefully you already have a website, so if you just go ahead and go to the file manager, find your index page, go to your htdocs folder. I'll look for my index that I created last time. If you haven't already, if you're jumping into this course later on and you didn't follow all the courses all the way through, you can go ahead and just find your index file where it may be residing, and we can use that. Now you'll see my code here. I'll zoom in just a little larger here. Since CSS is what we usually see, that's how what it changes, you want to primarily probably be working in your body. What inline means, just like when you were learning in high school or college, inline, when you do inline citation, it's in the actual body of the text. And so you'll see that inside the body here, we already have a lot of pre-existing links and tags and stuff like that. And so we're going to go ahead and modify some of these. Now, typically when we want to deal with inline, it means that it's on the actual line number. So for example, this H2 tag here, whoops, if I go down to it, is on line 23. And so it already has a attribute inside here called ID. Now this isn't CSS because it's not dealing with the style or what the appearance is. And so what we can do is let's just go ahead and we'll get some text here. Let's go ahead and make some down probably right about here. So we'll make a paragraph tag and we'll say this is some text, period, and let's go ahead and put an end paragraph. I've already told you that you do not need for certain tags to have an end tag, like paragraph is one of them, break is another, or link item, for example, up here in our navigation on line 15, 16, and 17. But when we're dealing with CSS, you're going to have an end tag, otherwise your style or the appearance will keep running on until it runs into the end tag that correlates with it. But for example here, in some text in the paragraph, you start an inline CSS by using the word or attribute style. You'll notice it pops up as red, and that's good because that means it's actually, let me zoom in a little further, that it recognizes that that is actually CSS. And so now what we'll do is we'll do equal and then quotes. Inside the quotes is where we're going to put our style, and it is case sensitive, so you have to be very careful. Now, one of the styles, if we refer back to our CSS tutorial, there's a lot of different styles you can do, but one of them, for example, is color. Now, how you first signify the property, which is color, and then you need to give it an assignment. Now, with color, it's really interesting, and I usually have my students explore colors because there's 3 really prominent types of ways you can do it. You can do what we call hex colors, and I'll explain that in a second, RGB, which is red, green, blue, and also HSL. RGB and hex are probably the most common, and hex is by far the most common since it gives you an astronomical amount of colors that you can use. So I'll go ahead and start a hex by using the pound symbol, and then you can just give it 6 digits. So each color, really it's RGB. So the first one is R, so you give it some numbers, 2 digits, placeholders, and then you can give the RG, right, and then B, right? RGB. Now, this would signify a hex color. Now, you have to, each property within the CSS attribute has to have an end semicolon to differentiate each one. So if I wanted to have another one, for example, I think font family is another one, then I can do colon, right? And then I can give it Arial. Oops, Arial. Oops, Arial. Okay, so now what we see here on line 26 is the full code with inline CSS. We have style, which is the attribute, and then the properties of color and font family. Now remember, the style has to be enclosed within quotes, and each of these properties has to be differentiated with a semicolon. Within each property, you distinguish the actual property itself with the value with a colon. So now we have color and font family. So if we go over to our web page and I zoom in, you'll notice this is some text. It's in Arial and it's blue or some weird bluish color. Interesting about hex colors, and if you want to learn more about that, you could just Google hex colors. But hex colors are really interesting because, once again, there are 3 colors, right? So they're 2 digits each. If the numbers are identical, for example, 34, and I do, okay, so 34, and I do 34, and then 34, it will be grayscale. So if I save this, and I go back to my page, and I refresh it, it should be some shade of gray. So if I go back down here, there you go. This is closer to black or charcoal. Now, a quick talk about colors. There are, once again, RGB, red, green, blue, which we're all familiar with, HSL, or HSL, that's right, which we're not going to talk about. It's a different format of doing it. And then hexadecimal. Hexadecimal is a numbering system, but it could also be used for colors, obviously. It's probably the most common. You'll notice here that if I zoom in and find it, it is signified by, keeps jumping around, sorry about that, letters and numbers. And it starts with a hashtag or a pound key. And the first color, the first 2 digits, you'll notice is AA. So A, it goes from A to F, tagged on top of 0 to 9. So after 9 comes A, then B, C, D, E, F. And so A is actually 10. So this is 10 and then 10. C would be 12, and F is 16. And so this is actually a number, and it's kind of cool. And once again, if they were all the same, like all A's, or I think all F is either white or black, pure white or pure black. We'd have to check it out. But if we were to save this, for example, and then we were to go check it out and do refresh, I think actually this is already it. Yes, it is. You'll notice it's some form of light blue. If we were to go back, and let's make all these the same. Let's see what FF is. And then do save. So it's FF, FF, FF. And do refresh. See if it's white or black. It is white. So all zeros, once again, since the numbers are all the same, this is part of the gray scale, right? Gray color scale. If they're all zeros, it should be black or pure black. Save. Go back and do refresh. There you go, pure black. So that's hexadecimal. Get familiar with it. It's very common on the internet. It's probably the most widely used. Hope you liked the lesson. I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.